What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Devy Royale. We're back with a little fun. We're going 2025 rookie mock draft, talking about, hey, who's coming next, right? 24 drafts are kind of in swing right now, but who's the guys next year? We're going to kind of give you a preview of that, looking at first round only, then on the radar prospects, and then we're going to be talking about pick value. So I will be going through every pick value out there that you can go through. We're going to be looking at what players are valued at right now that you can make trades and real dynasty trades. But let's get into the draft. So at the 101, and again, this is basically a mock draft ADP of a bunch of different drafts that we've done this offseason over at our Patreon. So what we're seeing right now is Luther Burden the third going number one overall wide receiver. Now, this is a unique year. If you haven't checked out my quarterback video from last week, I definitely would. There is no clear consensus Caleb Williams, Drake May in this class. Now, will there be a Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy that pops up? Possibly. I went through 8 of them, and I went over a bunch of different guys on the radar for the quarterback position. But right now, based on what we're seeing, there is value at the wide receiver position, but not at the quarterback position. Now, Luther had a hell of a year last year, 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, 91.1 receiving grade, only 4 drops last year, 3.2 yards per route run, and 8.7 ADOT. So he definitely improved that. He saw that dominator rating. He had the 6 touchdowns his first year, which basically got him to the weighted dominator rating that you like to see. So he is our 101 in a super flex tight end premium kind of format. That's the way you have to look at the value of the quarterback opposed to the wide receiver position. Now, 102, we got Tet McMillan. Tet is an absolute stud. If you don't know who he is, I really comp him to Mike Evans. It's been my comp for a couple of years now. 6'5", 210, 89.0 receiving grade. Only 3 drops on the year. Almost 3 yards per route run. 12.9 ADOT. It's looked really good for him. Now, last year, he absolutely exploded. 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns, 90 receptions. He looked like one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver in college football. This year, he's got his quarterback back, different system, but it looks like he'd be on his way. So 2 wide receivers off the board right away in this draft here. At 103, we have another one, Evan Stewart. Now, the jury's still out on Evan Stewart for some people out there. The Texas A&M guy, wide receiver, you could see here kind of inconsistent from a production standpoint. 500 yards last year, 649 yards, little banged up, offensive problems, quarterback problems. There was a lot of things going on there, but have to love his ADOT, 14.4, has shown that weighted dominator rating, the ability to get there. I think that, he could have that Oregon effect. He's going to Oregon next year. Troy Franklin kind of fell too. Like, what happens if Evan falls that way too? They kind of have a similar profile. Evan's not as big, but what could happen there? But right now, just based on value, based on the wide receiver position, Evan Stewart's getting valued as the 103. Then there's going to be kind of a tier and some questions, right? We have 104. We have Quinshaw Judkins, 5'11", 210, running back out of Ole Miss, but he transferred to Ohio State. That's why you see the Ohio State stuff there. 871 yards after contact last year, according to PFF. 78 missed tackles for us. That's pretty impressive. When you're talking about what he does well, that strength, that ability to make guys miss, that's Quinshaw Judkins. 39 explosive runs, 86.7 elusive rating, which could be better. A little banged up at the beginning of the year, offensive line problems there, but he's the first running back off the board. At 105, we had Nicholas Singleton, running back from Penn State. But I will say this, after Judkins, or even with Judkins, the running back value is there. There's a lot of depth at the class, but there's a lot of question marks about it, right? So Singleton, 486 yards after contact, 23 missed tackles for us, 16 explosive runs, elusive ratings 37.5. But what I would say, you saw his production dip down. So you see that right there. He splits time with Katron Allen. Last year, he had 752 yards. Looked kind of indecisive between the tackles. Looks to bounce it. But then look at his receiving. He improved his receiving almost twofold, right? 308 yards, 2 touchdowns. Looked really good there. So there's really, like, with Nicholas Singleton, a lot of these running backs, there's a lot of question marks again with their profiles, where they're going to go. So, like, we might have him at the 105 now. Who knows what that's going to look like at the end of the season? 106, we got Travion Henderson from Ohio State. Now, this is one of those things where we're going off his freshman year. 1,100 yards, 15 touchdowns, looked like one of the best freshmen, if not the best freshman running back that year. Had a down year last year, or 2 years ago because of an injury. Last year, again, banged up. So kind of been banged up. But when healthy, he is one of the best running backs in college football. 574 yards after contact, 29 missed tackles for us, 23 explosive runs last year. His elusive rating definitely went down. But of everybody in this class, Henderson is the best receiver. So when we're talking about receiving ability, that type of area, that's what Henderson does well. You have to love that. 107, again, this might be a shocker for some out there. We have Barry and Brown. That's where his ADP is at right now. 60.2.4 receiving grade wasn't great. 6 drops. Definitely had a down year last year, but 16.6 ADOT, and definitely looks like he could be an explosive player. Has been explosive in kickoff return, wide receiver. We just haven't seen the production numbers. Part of that's Kentucky's offense. Part of that's quarterback play. But this is more of an upside pick. What could he do possibly? Sitting there at that 107 mark. At the 108, we have running back Ollie Gordon, who popped off last year. 1,700 yards, 21 touchdowns, also 330 yards. He averaged 2,000 yards, essentially almost 2,000 yards. I can't really do math that well from scrimmage. Absolutely was fantastic last year. 1,000 yards after contact, 68 missed tackles forced, 45 explosive runs, 90.3 elusive rating is kind of the red flag, though. I love Ollie Gordon. I love his production profile, what he was able to put up. But that, the agility, lateral agility, elusiveness, I think that's the biggest red flag for Ollie Gordon moving forward as a running back. 109, we had Carson Beck. So first quarterback off the board goes at 109. By the numbers, this is what he looked like last year. 90.7 PFF offensive grade, 3.8% big time throw percentage, 2.5% turnover worthy play. But offensive grade under pressure is where he struggled, 57.4. Didn't look great under pressure. Had some games last year. You're like, oh my gosh, this kid could be QB1. Many thought he could come out this year and be QB2, 3, maybe in that range. Probably would have went ahead, maybe Drake or JJ, depending on what scouts thought of him. He returns. Now, if he's the clear-cut QB1, he'll go higher than 109. But that just shows you where, from a dynasty standpoint, the quarterback position is definitely being devalued there. 110, we had Devin Neal coming in there, running back. Many thought was going to come out last year after a 1,200-yard season, but went back to school based on draft grades, which in this class is kind of a red flag based on what we saw from the running back position with Trey and Jonathan Brooks and those guys. 729 yards after contact, 60 missed tackles forced, explosive runs was 34, 111.8 elusive rating. I was very surprised he came back. I like him at the late first. He'll probably be a mid-second by the time the season rolls around and testing, fourth-year guy too. You hope he stays healthy, but, definitely knocks in that profile there. At 111, we had Omar and Hampton get drafted, and he's one of those guys that is kind of under the radar. Had 1,500 yards last year and 15 touchdowns, but I think the big question mark that I hear from scouts and people around the industry and just people in general is that elusive lateral agility. Elusive rating looked good here, but will that lateral agility kind of play a role? It's going to be interesting to see what he does without Drake May being there in that offense. Can he really kind of be relied on in that offense, which he's probably going to have to be? So what is that moving forward? But you can see there's value at that running back position with how many running backs have been taken. And 112, we got Quinn Ewers sneaking in here, quarterback from Texas. Some have him as their QB1 still. Some have him not as QB1. They have him all the way off the board to say, hey, won't be a second-round pick or a first-round pick, maybe not even a second or third-round pick or whatever it is. But last year, 86.8 PFF offensive grade, almost a 4% big-time throw. Turnover-worthy play is about 1.7, 67 under offensive grade under pressure. Was okay, been banged up, still a talented guy, though. So if he puts it together this year in Texas, makes a run in the SEC, Quinn Ewers is going to be a first-round draft pick, right? We just saw JJ do that, JJ McCarthy. There is ability these guys can get better, or maybe Arch Manning takes over mid-year and Quinn Ewers transfers, right? These are all scenarios that are possible. Now, let's look at after the first round what we have. So here are some guys that could be on the radar prospects, right? So Riley Leonard, quarterback from Notre Dame, some higher or lower on him, depending on where you're at. Trevor Etienne, Georgia running back, people like him. Matthew Golden, wide receiver from Texas. Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders from Colorado. I think those two guys are going to be heavily debated. Is Hunter a wide receiver or a cornerback? Where is he going to go? Donovan Edwards was rising up boards last year, had a really down year for Michigan. And then, hey, is he going to come back into that second round? I will say the kid to keep an eye on is Isaiah Bond from Texas. Really, really hear a lot of great things about him. Looks like he's going to have a really good year this year with Sark and Ewers in that offense. Could be their wide receiver one. Isaiah Bond's one to really buy into. Connor Wiegman from Texas A&M, Dan Key, Jackson Dart, and there are plenty of others out there that I did not list that could be on the radar, but it does show you that there are some unknowns in that second round. It really comes down to the quarterback position. where these quarterbacks kind of lie. There's other guys on this list that didn't make it. Drew Aller possibly could be out there. There's a lot of different quarterbacks on the horizon that could go out there. And then you're always going to have those running backs and wide receivers kind of pop off. But that is the first round and on the radar prospects of guys you should be watching. Now, let's talk about where those 25 first are being valued right now. So early. So we talk about this a lot. Right now, they're still kind of cheap because you have teams thinking that they're after the rookie drafts. They see their roster. Hey, I can contend. So 25 first are still cheap. 26 first are cheaper, but 25 first are kind of cheap here. So early 25 first, projected, you got Purdy, Olave, and London, right? You can move off one of those guys to go get a first. Or if you have a first, you want to go buy those guys. That's what the value is right now. Mid first, you got Drake May in there, Jonathan Taylor, Tua, who's about to get an extension. Could be an interesting add in Superflex for a guy that's going to get an extension, probably 4-year deal, more than likely. Late, you got Kelsey still there. That 2-year extension, he got his value window back up. So that's a guy maybe to kind of capitalize on right now and get a first for him. Rashee Rice is still in there. I really believe Rashee Rice is valued around that 112 to 201 mark in there. Now, when you think of deals that have happened out there, now these are all 12-team Superflex tight end premium deals. Russell Wilson, 25 first for Jordan Addison. So, to get an asset like Addison, who's a wide receiver 2 on a great offense, but with an unknown at quarterback, you got to add a first in Russell. Russell's really a throwaway to me. That first is where that value is at. Where do you want to go there? Next one, Lamar for a 25 first and Patrick Mahomes. So again, if you really want to add that first and go get Mahomes, that's kind of how it looks. I would assume the first should be on the other side there, but this was a deal that got done based on fantasy calc, which, is one of those things. But that is an interesting deal there and this was a 4-point passing touchdown, 6-point rushing touchdown league. Next, you have Olave and a first for Bryce Jamison and Brandon Ayuk. I like this deal here. For both sides. I really like Ayuk, top 12 guy. Bryce is on that comeback with Jameson Williams. But if you can get Olave, who's probably wide receiver 8 or 9, and then your 25 first added to that for those 3 assets, which Jameson is definitely depreciating. We don't know what that is. Bryce is still a huge question mark. And Ayuk is depreciating. Like, you like him. I like Ayuk. He could be a top 12 guy, but he is a depreciating asset out there. Next one, 25 first for Cousins. So Cousins really is still going for that mid to late first kind of value there. Fields a first and a first from 26th for Kyler Murray. I'm smashing the Murray side. Give me Kyler Murray in all formats right now. I love the offensive building around him. I love the weapons they added. Then you have James Conner, Keenan Allen in a second for a first. If you can kind of package that deal of depreciating assets plus a second for a first, I wouldn't mind doing that on a rebuilding team, right? You might have to give up a second. I probably would have done thrown a third there and said, hey, would you roll with this? That way I don't have to give up my second. But on a team that you're rebuilding and you want to try to get in that first market, this is a way to kind of add those assets to the side. Now, the next 3 trades I want to go over, 25 first for Kenneth Walker, mid first, are you comfortable doing that? Puka at a first for CeeDee Lamb. So how high do you have Puka in your rankings? Would have first put it over the top for CeeDee Lamb. I've seen a variation of this deal multiple times. I think CeeDee Lamb he's going to have, he could break the record for targets in a season this year with that way the Dallas has built their roster. So I think, it's a good trade for both sides. I like it for both if it's a late first for CeeDee Lamb. It just kind of, there's definitely going to be some concern with Puka moving forward, I think, in how many targets he's going to earn there. If Cooper's healthy, if whatever that offense looks like, right? I love Puka still. So I think there is risk for both sides here. Then you have Ladd McConkey, who is the wide receiver 1 probably for Justin Herbert, and a first for Jaden Daniels. Again, this is one of those deals that I want to talk about. Like, once the rookie draft's over, that you can flip them for, right? So you drafted Ladd, the other guy has Jaden. And then, hey, I'll give you a first and McConkey for Jaden Daniels. Maybe as a luxury pick, a QB3, and they expect it to be maybe an early first, and you can kind of pivot on that because, like we just mentioned, like I just showed you guys, you really got to understand that the QB market next year is going to be even pricier because the lack of QBs in the 25 class. Now, some guys can pop off and they can have that, but you're going to have to go try to be, creative grabbing your QB2 or 3 this year because those QB2 and 3s are going to get more expensive. So now's the time to maybe get some of these guys. Another deal I saw was someone drafted Brian Thomas Jr. at the 110. Then they used him as a package to get Bryce and another asset like Ayuk back. I think that's an interesting way to do it, but you need to address that QB2 of you in your position so that you understand kind of how to navigate that. because it's going to get expensive as you go based on that first mark that you have. Now, before I get out of here, I want to shout out the Patreon that we're doing. We have 3 different tiers: the Riley tier, the Day tier, and Saban tier. We've seen a lot of growth in those. We appreciate that. Riley tier is only $1. You want to come to the Discord? It's very active. We got guys talking all the time. Just join it for there. You could get a discount too. If you join, you get $10. I think it's $10 for the year. The Day tier, what we have going on right now, we just dropped our Devy guide, which goes over 100 player profiles. We have our rankings, Dynasty, Devy combined as well. We have a Substack now for everybody that we'll be dropping content on, all kinds of different areas. We have podcasts going. We have Jay Stein's data, all that for $5 a month. It's one of the best deals out there, and in the Saban tier. So we would really appreciate it if you would join the Patreon. We could use your support as we kind of navigate this next part of our content creation career. So thank you guys. See you guys next time.